What should Manchester United do with David de Gea? His contract runs out at the end of the season. Should they be ruthless and accept that they need to upgrade in order to move on and play the way that Erik ten Hag really desires, which would require him to play with his feet more often, and it's not something he's ever been particularly comfortable with? Or should they be more loyal to a player who has helped them immeasurably through the fallow periods of the last 10 years? Undeniably, he cost them in the Europa League. He made a huge mistake down at West Ham earlier in the season. And yesterday, the common thought was that he made an error for the winner. Now, I was with Ali McCoist and Lee Dixon on commentary yesterday, and they thought that he should have stopped Gundogan's second effort. David Seaman suggested that he saw it late because of the crowd of bodies. What do you think? Should he have done better?
I think I'll go with David Seaman. He's obviously an expert in that position and understands the difficulties when a ball is struck through players. For me, straight away when I saw it, I thought unsighted. It's gone down the blind side of a few players to his right hand side, low, and he just couldn't react quickly enough. And I wouldn't have thought any of the goals were his fault on the day, but certainly not that one.
Whether you think it was a mistake or not, it was a scruffy goal to concede.
They all count.
But yeah, I know you're happy about it.
It's not about me. Ask Gundogan.
From a Manchester United point of view, there is a recent history of mistakes that have cost the team from David de Gea. He's out of contract at the end of the season. You don't have to offer him a new one, would you?
Well, I think you have to be in the camp to understand what he's like as a character. He's won several Player of the Seasons whilst being at Manchester United. He's been a loyal servant when I think there was big clubs circling many times throughout his time at Manchester United. So he's been loyal. But I think you have to speak to the player. You have to speak to the coach. And for me, if Erik ten Hag wants to play exactly how he wants to play and how what his principles need, I think you have to get a goalkeeper in who can play with his feet better than De Gea.
Because hearing Erik ten Hag's post-match interview, he didn't exactly come out defending him. And also, when he was talking earlier in the week, he was suggesting that he wants to keep David de Gea. He believes they're going to keep David de Gea, but he wouldn't always be the number one, and that good competition was healthy.
I think that's sensible, because he has got a lot of experience. He understands Manchester United, the football club. And if you are going to bring a younger goalkeeper in who is excellent with his feet, then who better to have as his kind of role model and look after him, make sure things are done right, the standards are done right, that he looks after himself properly in training. Why not keep him in that capacity? But is
he not a goalkeeper that is diminishing in quality, though? Because let's be honest, the teams that play for top honours now rely on someone who can play out from the back, and he isn't great at doing that. I'm not saying he can't use his feet, but he's not in the top echelons of those who can, right? If you go back earlier in the season, yes, he's kept loads of clean sheets. He's got more clean sheets in the Premier League than any other goalkeeper, 17 this season. But if you look at his save percentage ratio over the course of the last 3 years, 70% in the Premier League or more was his standard for the first sort of 8 or 9 seasons that he was with Manchester United.
Yep.
Now it's 69.93, 68.85, 65.22. In 7 or 9 seasons before that, it was above the mark of 70. So the trajectory is sort of going in the wrong direction. Is it not right just to think, okay, fine, we've come to the end of the road, let's try something different?
No, because I think if he's a great character amongst the squad and he has still got quality, I think you always need 2 goalkeepers anyway. And if there's competition places and he's doing better than the player, the goalkeeper you've brought in, whoever that might be, then he gets the nod. If he doesn't, and the lad comes in, he's doing really well with his goalkeeping skills, but also he's better with his feet, then he's there as a support role. You see it a lot. And going back to Ortega's there as a support mechanism, and so is Scott Carson as a support mechanism. Is there for Ederson because he's the number one. I think you need that kind of togetherness in that goalkeeper union. And if he is a great lad, and this is where you have to be inside the training camp and understand the squad and the dynamics at Manchester United. If he is a great lad to be around, always on time, really professional, works hard every day,
you don't
diligent.
Give someone who's the highest paid player in
well, no,
the
that's
club
something else
a
that
new
you
contract,
but that's
just
something
because he's a nice lad.
But no, I'm not saying that. But that's something else that's got to be discussed. His wages. So he's not going to be automatic number one. Then they'll have to look at that package. And it depends whether De Gea wants to go back to, I don't know, he might want to go and play in the continent. He might want to go and play in a country or an area that doesn't rain like 250 days a year. So listen, there's lots.
It's not raining today, by the way.
No, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful sunshine.
Absolutely
You've got
stunning.
your shorts on.
I have.
We were outside in the sunshine earlier on. You were sitting in my garden earlier on, weren't you?
getting a few rays.
Yeah. Interesting, though, I think the fact that they paid him so much and he was the highest paid player at the club sort of reflects the sort of nature of Manchester United's sort of almost desperation over the course of the last 5 years, that he's had to save them so often in games and in seasons, and he's been the player of the season. I mean, if your goalkeeper's regularly being your player of the season and your highest paid player, I mean, if that's not a cause for alarm, I don't know what is.
Yeah, of course it is.
No disrespect.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day. Another one who might be struggling to keep a place in the squad is Jadon Sancho. They've done a lot of work with him. They've given him a lot of time.
I think he's managed him really well.
The revival over Christmas and after Christmas he did very well, but he went into his shell again yesterday. How much was that down to Kyle Walker, and how much was that down to Jadon Sancho not quite being able to sort of cut it in those big games? What have you made of him? And are you a little bit disappointed with the way his career has gone since leaving Borussia Dortmund?
It's not that I'm disappointed. In a way, and it's quite harsh to say, I expected it. Because if you look at the Premier League players that can affect games in forward positions, especially out wide, you've got to have pace.
Yeah.
And it's a fundamental. I don't feel sorry for him, but it's almost like it doesn't matter what work you do with him, unless you're going to give him a burst of speed, which you can't do. You can increase it slightly, but look at Kyle Walker. He is so comfortable marking him. The only way that he could possibly get the better of Kyle Walker, or a player like Kyle Walker, is if he plays 1-2s, third man runs, moving off the ball, breaking lines.
And that was his strength when he was playing with Haaland at Borussia Dortmund.
But still,
his ability to play that wall pass, to hold the ball, slow the game down, then speed it up, and then play a little pass that got him into a good position.
Yeah, but as a winger, and listen,
he carries the ball well as well.
Of course he does. There's not many wingers that have affected the Premier League who've not had pace. I mean, Beckham. He affected the Premier League in a massive way. He didn't have pace, but he was an unbelievable technician. He had an unbelievable cross. You've almost got to have super strengths. If you've not got speed, you've got super strengths. I just don't feel that Jadon Sancho has got super strengths at the moment. And they have worked with him. I can see they've worked with his fitness, they've worked on his strength.
Another thing, sent him away to camp to make sure he got his head right.
Another thing that you've got to be able to do as a forward, and we talk about this as with defenders, you've got to be able to take a kick now and again to protect the ball and take one for the team. Now that takes a big pair of kahunas to do that, and you might get hurt. But unless you're prepared to put your body on the line as a forward at times, you're not going to affect the game.
I'll tell you who did affect the game when coming off the bench yesterday, and that was Alejandro Garnacho.
Yep.
18 years
Fearless.
of age. He's got not a care in the world. He's up for it and he's going for it. He was
well.
the one who was showing the urgency towards the end of the match, almost scored the equaliser. He's good at picking the ball up, running at the defence, being aggressive, committing defenders. He's the future of Manchester United. He's got a little bit of swagger. He's got a little bit of arrogance about him as well. That's what they need from a wide man. What sort of future do you think he's got?
I think he's got a huge future. When we were talking about the things earlier that you need as a forward, as a wide man in the Premier League to be able to get success, you've got to have pace. He's got pace. You've got to be fearless. You've got to have that arrogance on the pitch to say, you know what, 1-on-1, I'm going to get at you and I'm going to get the better of you. And I'm going to get the wrong side. I'm going to get crosses in. I'm going to get shots in. I'm going to make that far post when the ball's coming in from the other side. These are all fundamentals of a winger. And I feel I can see him learning. You can see him learning. You can see him improving. Obviously, defensively, you've got to be equipped to be able to take on the information defensively and know where you need to be out of possession. But when you talk about in possession, I think he's a danger.
How would you have got on in a race with Kyle Walker, do you think?
Kyle Walker's super. He's too fast for me. I mean, probably when I was kind of in my early days at QPR, I would have fancied myself, before my injury, before I got my knee injury, which took a few yards of pace off me, I would have fancied myself against anyone.
Would you?
Yeah, change direction.
Even Bugatti speed Carl.
But again, part of being an elite player is when you come up against a team and you know somebody's rapido, you're probably not going to try and match him at that. You're going to try and
do something different.
You're going to disguise. You can play 1-2 third man runs. You're going to try and upset him in different ways. You can't just expect to get the ball, knock it past him and say, let's have a race. We've seen that many times. Vinicius couldn't do it. So I would have tried to mix it up, use different skill sets to make sure I got the better of him.
Be interesting to see what happens to him at the end of the season. He's turned 33 now, Kyle Walker.
He's not slowing down,
but
though.
He was quite happy to sit in a Champions League press conference and say that before the Madrid game. He's like, well,
but he almost plays right back and right centre half, and almost as a forward. Fullback flying up and down as well.
I think he's played more Premier League games this season for Manchester City than I think he has ever before, or more appearances this season than he ever has before, which means that, he's not slowing down, and there doesn't seem to be any signs that Pep's losing faith in him either. I know he had a little bit of a
but-
tune-up and said to him, he doesn't think he can play in this current system. But it was about a week later and he was back in the team and he's played in every game since, I think.
But he's changed his position, so he can't play in that role. That
also, Pep does that,
Stones
doesn't
is
he?
playing
He
it.
just gets a big grenade.
But he does it to De
pulls the
Bruyne,
top
of course
off,
he does.
tosses it in and then says, let's see how you
But
respond to it.
If you don't listen, I'm sure the players challenge Pep as well. But if you don't challenge the players and get under the skin a little bit, I don't think you're doing your job as a manager.